As far as the Western Conference goes, it looks a little bit more shaky in terms of who we know is going to make the playoffs. I think the top of the board is pretty stable. Right now, we have the Jazz as the one seed, and then going down the board, we have the Suns, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Trailblazers, the Nuggets, the Spurs, and the Mavericks. Right outside of the playoff race, we have the Warriors, the Grizzlies, and then a little bit below, and they're kind of far out of it. They're 4 games back, are the New Orleans Pelicans and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Me personally, I think the top four is very, very solidified in terms of the Jazz, Suns, Lakers, Clippers. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being Jazz, Suns, Clippers, Lakers, just because the whole AD thing. And I'm not sure that LeBron really cares too much to be the 3 seed instead of the 4 seed. And he might take a game or two off as he just did recently. So I could see that realistically happening, especially with Kawhi Leonard playing the way he is and Paul George being a lot better than what playoff P is. In terms of 5 through 8, it's really shaky, right? We see the Trailblazers at number 5, we see the Nuggets at 6, and then in my opinion, 7 and 8 are two teams that I'm not even sure are going to make the playoffs, right? The Spurs and the Mavericks. We talked about it last week. The Spurs seem very fringy, especially DeMar DeRozan is on the trade block. The Mavericks, I don't know what's up with them. They have a lot of good players. Like Tim Hardaway's coming off the bench. They got Josh Richardson starting. They have Porzingis, Luka Doncic. We all know the names, and they're still the 8th seed. In my opinion, I could realistically see the Warriors jumping over the Spurs and finishing in the 7th or maybe even the 6th seed. And I wouldn't count out the Thunder. I think Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's having a fantastic year. The team doesn't have too many superstars there, but I think he's a good enough player to maybe push for that 8th seed. Are there any other teams that you think, maybe the Pelicans, you think that they could sneak in, or the Grizzlies, or nah? You're just sticking with the top 8?
I would say that I think the Spurs are going to fall out just because I believe in speaking it into existence, and I fucking hate the Spurs. No one wants to see them in the playoffs get fucking swept in 4 games. I know they have like a few young players that are kind of exciting, but they're a few years away from being in their prime anyway, like Keldon Johnson and Murray and stuff. But
I love
yeah,
DeJounte Murray. I don't know what it is, but I love point guards that can't shoot the three. It's just like they made it this far. They got to be pretty good at everything else.
yeah, no, definitely. But yeah, I think that I think most likely Golden State will get in, and I think Dallas will stay in that 7-8 range just because I think they've been rumored to a lot of different players. Like today, I saw Kevin Love, which God knows how
Is
that's
he
going to
still in
work
the
out.
league?
Kevin Love, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen
Yeah,
that
he's
guy
on the
put a
Cavs. I don't know if he's
jersey
been.
on in months.
Yeah, he's been. I think he's been hurt, and then I don't know if he's just like getting rested now or whatever it is. But yeah, he was rumored to Dallas in something I saw on Twitter, and I don't know how the hell that would work out defensively. I mean, Kristaps is like 7'3" and like can't play one lick of defense, and Evan Love is just getting abused on the block. So
It fits them
yeah,
though because it seems like Mark Cuban just goes for like these white international guys. I know he's not international, but just having that big three, the white Mambas, bring back Scalabrine too, and just run it up. I don't know. That could be a decent fit because at least he can grab a board. Like Porzingis can like block somebody off the glass once every 3 games, but he's not down low grabbing rebounds. He averages like 8 a game. But when you're 7'3", you got to do a little bit better than that. But then again, like is Dorian Finney-Smith and Dwight Powell just gonna play center because neither one of those guys want to play down low?
yeah, they have a bunch of holes in their roster, and Luca makes up for a lot of that just because he's like unbelievable at whatever he's 22, 23. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see like how the bottom of the conference, or I mean, like the bottom of the playoffs shakes out for the West, because you got a team like the Pelicans who could go on a run anytime, Lonzo Ball starts hitting the three, or fucking Zion can not get abused by some big ass power forward that's like twice his height. But yeah, I don't know. I want like a team like the Pelicans or Grizzlies or even Warriors to get in over a team like the Spurs, just because entertainment value, and they're probably most likely going to get beat by whether it's the Jazz, the Lakers, the Clippers, or even the Suns. I think they might be a little bit more competitive in the West just because it is the West and there's better players typically. But yeah, I don't know. I hope a team like the Pelicans or Grizzlies gets in. That'd be really fun to see, I think.
I need the 4-5 to be Clippers Trailblazers. I need to see Damian Lillard just wave goodbye to Paul George one last time. That would be absolutely incredible.
Chance right here. Shot clock is off. Portland has a timeout. Lillard, a chance to send the Thunder.
I mean, that's a bad shot. Care what anybody says, that's a bad shot.
But I do think the Trailblazers, they're such a weird team. I mean, Josh is a fan, so every time they're on, we're watching them. And I cannot stand to watch the Trailblazers. It's like watching the Panthers in football. Like they have all these good players and they just blow every game, right? They have Damian Lillard, McCollum's been out, but then like Gary Trent's pretty good. They have Ennis Cantor, who can like just do hook shots down low. They have a decent squad. Carmelo Anthony still thinks he can get a bucket, but they just always blow big leads. And that's a perfect team in the playoffs to bet against. But then at the same time, you got Damian Lillard, who can erase a 30-point lead in 10 shots. So that's an interesting team. I think the West is going to be a lot more fun to watch because I think it's so close, right? As far as the East goes, I think the only realistic teams that can make it out of that conference are probably the Nets, the 76ers, and maybe the Bucks, but I don't trust the Bucks at all with, Giannis not being able to hit a three unless it's the fucking All-Star game. So the Western Conference is definitely more up in the air. And the fact that the Nuggets are the 6th seed at 21-15, right? That could be a team that is super sneaky. They played very well in the playoffs last year. And now the fact that Jamal Murray is not worrying about his girlfriend sucking him off on Snapchat and is instead getting buckets every single game, and Jokic being Jokic, and them having Michael Porter Jr. kind of break out, and Will Barton pretty good, and RJ Hampton coming into his own, and Paul Millsap's been hurt, but he's still around. So they have a pretty deep team. I wouldn't be surprised if they sneak into the 5th or maybe even the 4th seed ahead of a team like the Lakers. But whatever the weather, whatever happens, this is going to be a very, very interesting playoffs in the West. And if I were to hash out who I think the top 8 seeds are going to be in order, I would say the Jazz, the Suns, the Clippers, Lakers, Nuggets. I'm going to go Warriors at 6? And then Trailblazers, Mavericks at 8.
Yeah, I would say I'm pretty similar. I would say Jazz stay at 1. I actually think the Clippers are going to go on a bit of a run. I think they'll, Kawhi won't maybe take it off as many games. Same with Paul George. He's been playing much better this year than last year in the bubble. But yeah, I would say Jazz, Clippers, Suns, Lakers, and then pretty much the rest of the conference stay the same, except Warriors get in instead of the Spurs. I'm more excited for the actual playoffs when it comes to the West, though, just because even though like 1-8 or like 2-7 games will be a little bit more entertaining and stuff, and there'll be more back and forth.
And I think in Top Shot, in terms of players you can invest in, right? The West or the East is a lot more star heavy. A lot of the guys like the Heat, it's Bam Adebayo, it's Jimmy Butler. On the Celtics, it's Jaylen Brown, it's Jason Tatum. On the Bucks, even it's Chris Middleton and Giannis, and to some extent Drew Holiday. Brook Lopez is kind of big for nothing. When you go to the West, there's a lot of guys that can get buckets that are kind of more role players and cheaper on Top Shot. So we talked about on the Jazz, whether it's Bogdanovich, whether it's Joe Ingles, even Mike Conley. He's not really a role player. He's a very good player, made the All-Star game because there's so much COVID shit going around. But all those guys are pretty cheap. You look at the Suns and you can invest in a guy like Mikal Bridges, who's a really good 3-and-D two-way player. You look at the Lakers, Montrezl Harrell's pretty cheap. I'm not too big of a fan of investing in him because I just don't think he's the same player he was when he was on the Clippers. You go to the Clippers, you see Patrick Beverly, you see Lou Williams is kind of cheap, but then again, he's kind of fallen off. Trailblazers, not really anything doing there. All their guys are pretty expensive. The Nuggets, Will Barton has like a 12,000 LE, so it's nothing to look into. But then the Warriors is pretty enticing because aside from Steph Curry, the only other people on that team that can go out and score are Andrew Wiggins and Kelly Oubre. Like Draymond Green's averaging like 3 points a game. It's something ridiculously low. And the last time I checked, Andrew Wiggins was about $160 and Kelly Oubre was hovering around 200. And the Kelly Oubre moment, we talked about it before. He packs up Terrence Ross and puts him in a fucking locker, stuffs him into the crowd. That's a good moment, and he's a good player, and he's been averaging like 20 and 7 over the last few weeks. Andrew Wiggins' first moment as well is a backdoor lob. I forgot who he dunks on, but he dunks on somebody, and that's pretty cool to me. And he's another guy that can go out and get you 25 one night in the playoffs. And, if they upset the Lakers, if it ends up being a 3-6 series or a 4-5, something like that, and they play the Lakers and Andrew Wiggins gets 25 on LeBron's skull, guess what? His price is going to go up as well. So there's a lot of guys in the West that you can invest in that will realistically make the playoffs. I guess the Mavericks as well, a guy like Josh Richardson is definitely having a down year in terms of what he was showing, at least when he was in Miami or on the Sixers. But he's another cheap guy that you can invest in. If the Grizzlies make it, one other guy that I like that is super cheap because he's a 12,000 LE, Brandon Clark. I think realistically, he's better than Jaren Jackson Jr. The Jaren Jackson Jr. moment is ridiculously expensive. He's also 4,000 for population, whereas Brandon Clark is 12,000. But the price difference is like 300 compared to 30. I don't think he's 10 times the player. and scarcity wise, he's 1/4 as scarce. So the numbers got to work out somewhere there. So I like Brandon Clarke a little bit. And obviously guys like Ja Morant are going to go to the absolute moon if he shows off in the playoffs. But I think that's about all we got for the Western Conference, unless you have something else to add here.
Yeah, no, I was only going to say, it's like specifically on the Oubre moment. I just looked it up right now. He's going for around like 190, I think 89 specifically right now. I know that's down because I was looking at him a few weeks ago, and this isn't even when the market was at its peak, but he was like around 260, 270. And he's a guy that's, like you said, he's been playing really well. I actually like just went through and looked at some of his game logs like leading up to the All-Star break, and he's been playing phenomenal. Is kind of the reason they've been on this winning streak. He's been able to hit the 3-pointer and stuff a little bit more consistently. He started off really rough, so
he's an exciting player too. Like his series 2 moment is him dunking on Kevin Durant on a putback dunk. He's just a high motor guy that is willing to try to dunk on anybody. I forget when it was, but there's a clip of him trying to do a putback dunk, and he just grabs the ball and he just threw it over the backboard because he was trying to dunk from like 10 feet away on a putback where he didn't have any type of momentum. He's kind of a psycho in that regard, but he can go out and get you a bucket, put up 25 in a game, or have a big poster, and then people are searching up Kelly Oubre's name, even though their girlfriend was probably doing it a month prior. But, you go out there, you get a Kelly Oubre on the cheap right now, you hold him because they're on the Warriors, and maybe he's part of a package deal. They talked about trading for Kristaps Porzingis. Would it be to anybody's surprise if Kelly Oubre was on the other side of the deal? I don't know how the money works out, but maybe that would have happened. He goes to the Mavericks. He's a pretty good 3-and-D guy to be over there. So that's something to look into as well. But I think that's all we got for the Western Conference. The next video you guys are going to see are our predictions when it comes to the awards this season. MVP, Most Improved, Rookie of the Year, all that shit, potential badges players may get, and guys you can invest in right now in case those badges actually get added to those players. Get in on them early and profit later.
Hey. Yeah. Get paid a pretty penny for my thoughts. I'm hard away with grandma, I'm hot. They only care about a nigga when he handle the rap or when he dishing the pill.